Hi everyone and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we look at some news from around the internet, have a grumble when required, and talk about the ways we keep ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. Welcome to the stream for the next 40 minutes or so, talking about life and stuff. I'm joined by a live chat room with such people as Tom and Lucas and Taylor and Andrew. Hello. But I guess I'm also joined by my co-host, Matt Two Rumpets. Hi there, Matt. How's it going, bud?
Well, it's been quite the week, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, are you a bit happier? You don't have the burning Zoom background anymore?
Yeah, well, I suppose I could technically still be running it, but as is, I think we're pretty happy over here. Overall.
Well, just over half of you are happy.
Significantly more than half.
Well,
at least as far as these things go.
Well, we'll see what the lawyers say, Matt. But we won't go in depth into those US elections, because one of the key things that had been stressing me out actually was feeling that pain coming over from the Atlantic, feeling the stresses of all the COVID news, thankfully of which there is some good now, the strains of the Brexit stuff and the effects of that, people arguing on both sides, everyone yelling at each other, hardly any middle ground at all. And I just got to the end of my tether last week and I went, right, I need a week off work-wise, but most importantly, I need a week off social media, group chats, all those forums, all the loud yelling voices. I just needed to calm and quiet my mind for a week.
Yeah, no, I think kind of everybody really felt that way. It got very... Well, I think the word toxic is kind of overused, but I think that's a pretty good apt description, if I'm being honest.
It absolutely was. And I combined that as well with just a bit of time off. So me trying to take time off, you can imagine how that went down.
Yeah, you don't strike me as the time off kind of person, if I'm being honest.
I really, really tried, but it's hard not to pick up the phone and take meetings. I'm a newly freelancey person. And then, of course, there's the issue of Mrs. Spanners simply seeing my time off as a resource to be reallocated. So I got given a really long list of stuff. And at the beginning of the week, I wrote the show notes for this today, and I was going to talk about how I'd accomplished all those tasks. And then I was looking at one task, which was fix the back gate. And I had two choices. I could rewrite the show notes or go and fix the back gate. And that is the only thing that actually got me out there to fix that thing that's been broken for about 9 months. So I fixed it. Slammed the nails into it. Nails first, hammers second. About 20 nails I fixed this thing. I went back in, I put the hammer down. I said, see, Nick, you don't have to nag me every 6 months. These things get done eventually.
I see. I'm looking forward to the thing that you missed on next week's show.
Yeah, don't worry. There's plenty of that. We are joined by a very special guest today. I'm incredibly excited to be joined by BBC journalist and newsreader at BBC Radio Cambridge, Sara Very. Sara, thank you for coming and slumming it on a podcast.
I'm only too happy to be here. It's a beautiful afternoon, and I can't think of anything nicer than having a transatlantic chat with a couple of guys, Yeah, why not?
This is my world all the time, Sara. We've got our video producer is in Australia. Our website manager is in Sweden. We've got people in Seattle and in Brooklyn. And the amount of times we're just having conversations from all around the world and all the different time zones. We're not even on the same day most of the time. It's wonderful.
I know that feeling only too well.
So we start our call and I say, I'll say, good afternoon, Matt. And he'll say, good morning. And the Aussie will be like, well, good evening to you all. And obviously he slurs it because it's the evening and he's Australian. But apart from that, it is, absolutely delightful. And it's wonderful to speak to you out of the kind of newsroom context, because you are going to talk to us about your passion today, which is cooking. But when I speak to you normally, it's all very, very, hello, this is Sara Very. It's time for the news. Several terrible and inexplicable things happened today. Goodbye. And that's not the real you, is it?
It's not the real me at all. No, I have to pretend to be serious and knowledgeable. It's I've got away with it for quite a while now.
Yeah, but it's such an important role. Like when you think of like pillars of society and social status, I can't think of anything more kind of noble and respected than the news person. It's like there's a massive responsibility, but you must feel so proud as well.
Yeah, I love doing it. But if you remember, actually, that of course women were not considered to have sufficient gravitas to read the news for
Right.
many, many decades.
Really?
So I'm
Yeah.
very honoured. Yeah, absolutely, because they had high-pitched voices and they didn't sound like they knew anything.
Okay, well, I find your comment offensive and sexist, Sarah. I don't think that's true at all. But
But that was the way we were viewed. So there you go. It's not true, patently.
no, I mean, there's several good news presenters that are female, especially at BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, and it wouldn't even occur to me now that there would be a gendered difference, that men would somehow be better at reading the news.
Well, just because they've got lower voices, you see. That was the thing.
Oh, okay. Well, the news needs to be sternly delivered like that. I see.
Yeah, if you listen back to the old broadcast, it was all down there.
And Sarah Very, it's spelt Sara,
Yes.
Sara Very, but you got me in trouble with the weather person, Sarah
I didn't
Thorn.
get you in trouble at all. You got yourself in there.
You did.
There we go.
Oh, good. Our first fight. Good. It's your fault because I look at yours, Sarah, and you were like, no, it's Sarah. So when the weather person came on, I said, oh, it's, and she's the TV weather person as well. And I said, Sarah Thornton. And she corrected me live on air. And she said, I must correct you now or you'll just keep doing it. Because I think it's the second time I got it wrong. And I said, but the news person, Sarah Very, she says it's Sarah. And Sarah Thornton said, well, she's wrong. And I'm happy to tell her she's wrong.
She can tell me. I just say, blame my mother.
Really?
And I said that recently in front of my mother, who's 94. And she took me to task. So I'm going to get it from both sides. My mother says it's the correct pronunciation and the right spelling, going back to the Old Testament. How she knows how they spoke in the Old Testament, even at 94, is beyond me. But apparently she knows these things. So I just go with the flow. And then and there is not my name, you see. That's my married name. And I got landed with that.
Well, you know what? I offered my wife, I said, I'm not precious about keeping... I'm a man. You must take my name. So I was like, we could just invent any name. I thought we could be like Dominguez, and then people could call me Ding for short. I thought that would be pretty cool. But yeah, she didn't go for that. She just took my name. And I always feel it's a very strange thing, isn't it, to change your identity over and start just using a different surname.
It was very weird, actually. Yes. In Spain, you take the woman's
Do
name.
you?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, you're not here to talk etymology of names. We're going to talk some cooking. So your passion is cooking. Me and Matt are in similar positions in that we only cook when necessary, and that everyone in our house is broadly happy with that. I have caught my children asking their mother, like, who's cooking dinner tonight? And when they've said it's a dad dinner, and they've gone, oh. Like they're trying to be polite, but they're sort of vaguely disappointed. And Matt, you're in a similar boat to me.
Well, I was going to say, at least they still trust you with the cooking. At my house, I had been reduced down to just a single dinner that I am allowed to cook. And for which I am mocked for one single failure years and years and years and years ago when I had the young daughter, like I'm talking like the 2, 3, 4-year-old daughter by myself for a month and a half. I made one mistake and was never allowed to forget it. At this point, she has just taken over cooking that meal. She's like, oh, I'll just do it, Dad.
What, your daughter? Well, we've got to hear what that meal was, and we've got to hear what that mistake was now, surely.
Well, okay. So we cook a version of what we call rice and beans. It's just black beans. And we cook it with kielbasa, like half a kielbasa, some onions, a little garlic, chicken stock. Cook it all up in a skillet, dump it over rice, and then I like to cover it with hot sauce, a little bit of pepper jack cheese. It's just like a standard, easy, working person's dish to cook when you come home at the end of the day. And I was minding the child and cooking at the same time because my wife was out of town for over a month. And I let the kielbasa go on a wee bit too long. And they became vaguely hockey puck-like, or as I like to call them, Cajun. And
I don't even know what they are. What are we talking about? Meatballs or?
Well, no, there's just like kielbasa is just like a sausage. It's like a pre-cooked smoked sausage, and you just cut it up into little discs and chuck it in there and sizzle it in the skillet. And then you dump the beans, chicken stock. You start with the onions, obviously, and then the kielbasa and the beans and the chicken stock, and then it all simmers down. You just dump it on rice, and you're good to go. Anyway, the very next phone call with the wife. Dad made hockey pucks last night, and still to this day, I am teased about it mercilessly by my family, who I sustained, and my daughter, who I sustained. I did things like I cooked an entire apple pie from scratch for her. She does not remember this.
But the hockey pucks.
Including like the melting the sugar and getting the right, all the spices and everything. It was really delicious. No, doesn't remember that. Just the hockey pucks.
Just that one mistake. And this is the problem, Sarah. For me and Matt, I think we lack any kind of confidence in cooking. We lack the basics. So we need some rescuing.
Okay. So we have to bear in mind here that you guys actually speak slightly different languages. The old joke about divided by a common language. So in American cooking, you use slightly different terms, but I'll try to cope with that if I can. So you really do need to go back to basics with cooking. Yeah. And one of the reasons I like cooking, apart from the fact that I really like eating, is that I really like the science behind it. And actually, if you've got a vague interest in the science, then getting into cooking becomes far more interesting to me.
Okay, well,
this is how this works.
We love science here at the Remain Indoors podcast. So if you can put it in terms of sciencey stuff, then we might feel a bit more at home. And by the way, the chat room is saying people need to drink when I cook, says Stuart. There's a
before, during, and afterwards. Presumably.
Yeah, there's a big list of wow, you're a bunch of drunks in the chat room. But do you know what? I find that with the stress of cooking a family meal, I end up cracking a tin open or something like that just for the act of cooking. I find it very stressful. But if I knew the basics, if I knew the science, I might do a little better. Why don't you take us through some of these basics that I might be missing?
Okay, so there are some basic methods of cooking. I think you can divide them into sort of subgroups. But if you think that there's baking, there's frying, which I'm not sure what you call that, but I'm sure you understand that in America. Roasting, grilling, which I think is broiling, poaching, and simmering. Okay.
Yeah.
They're the sort of methods that you're going to use to cook things. And you sometimes need to combine those methods as well. So, you might fry something and then you're going to simmer it. Yes. You may ask a question.
Oh, I'm putting my hand up. So I had a dilemma yesterday with burgers, which is normally when I've made people burgers, I would just put them on the barbecue. And for some reason, I'm trusted when it comes to barbecue. I need to apply the heat to meat on fire.
Men and fire. Yeah.
I protest that it's sexist every time. I was like, oh, just because it's a barbecue, I have to cook it. Yes, shut up. So I go and do it. But we were doing them indoors, and I was like, oh, how do I cook this burger? If I put it on the grill, it's going to set off the fire alarms all throughout the street, so there's no point. So last week, I did it in a covered frying pan, and you were asking what Americans call them. Americans call them fizzle pots because they're very literal. But that had a lot of fat built up in weird ways when I did it like that. And then so yesterday I just chucked them in the oven, and actually it was fine. So trying to decide the method of applying heat to a thing is actually a fundamental basic.
It is a fundamental. So if you think about it, going back to basics, if you're cooking it on a barbecue, you're applying direct heat, preferably not flames, but it is direct radiant heat. Yeah. And on the outside, what you really want is you want it brown and sort of scrummy on the outside, slightly crisp, and juicy on the inside. Yeah. So that's why the timing is quite important. So you don't want the fire, you want it hot enough to seal it, which keeps all the juice in. Yeah, but not so hot that it incinerates it before the middle is even room temperature. Okay?
Yeah.
So what you did by putting it in something with a lid indoors was actually you introduced vapor into it. So, right? You didn't fry it or grill it. You didn't grill it. What you can do indoors is to use one of those ridged grills.
Yeah.
But you need to let the water vapor escape, because otherwise it's coming back down. So the spitting is the water vapor hitting the fat. and exploded.
So I couldn't have chosen a worse thing, really, to have.
Correct. I mean, just apply logic to it. How does it work outside? I mean, we all started cooking on fire. In fact, we only got ovens in the UK as a common thing after the Second World War.
Yeah, so Taylor is saying she uses a griddle to cook burgers indoors. Yeah.
That's one of those ridged pans.
Cast iron. If you're going to do it indoors, do it cast iron. You can do it in a skillet. You can do it on a griddle.
A skillet's a frying pan, I think.
Yeah, we have like the deep. Either one will work, but the cast iron is really
actually a skillet is what we call a saute pan. It's deeper, but a griddle and they're fantastic on if you've got an induction hob. They're brilliant because you can just set the temperature rock solid.
So that was the mistake I made with the burgers, and that was what was going wrong. The water vapor was being kept in because I thought that was a brilliant idea. But this is the level I'm at, though.
It's hard to brown, and it's hard to brown it then.
Yeah, and it wasn't so brown. But when I did it in the oven, at least the burgers were kind of crispy and they were browned. So what was happening there? Is that like, firstly, I put it on the grill, but I put the grill in the oven and I just kept flipping it over. Was I a million miles away with that?
No, that's because if you're using a ridged pan, then you're keeping the meat out of the juices, so it will go crispy on the underneath as well. So as long as the oven is hot enough, a modern oven is only effectively a fire.
Yeah. So what I do with the oven, and I've got a feeling you're not going to like this, is I've stopped reading packets of anything. I just do everything at 200 in a fan assistant. I don't even look at the timings anymore. Everything's 25 minutes at 200.
And does it taste like it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they don't complain much to my face.
They're just working out how soon they can leave home.
Or cook it themselves.
So what is it? What is it about?
Either, whichever comes first.
So what is it about the oven then that makes it go like crispy? Is it because the moisture's leaking away?
No. Well, yes and no. So when you're using dry heat like fire or a hot oven, you're actually browning the sugars in the meat.
Right.
And meat randomly has sugar in it. Okay, our bodies have sugar in it. It's what fuels our bodies. So a piece of meat has sugar in it. And what you're doing when you grill it or fry it or bake it is you're actually caramelizing those sugars. And what you want to do is to caramelize the sugars on the outside, but you want to keep the inside moist and you want to seal in the juices.
So that's why everyone loves like crispy edges to stuff, because you've got your meat, but you've essentially got a baked sugar crispy outside thing.
And it tastes slightly sweet if you think about it. And how many people really get annoyed if they like rare meat, and they really annoy those people who like it well done, because I like both, and I take the end off the meat, but I also take a bit from the middle.
That's rude. That's like taking the corner bit off the cheese. That's like taking the nose off the cheese. See, Matt, it's simple things like that. Did you know that? Did you know that the crispy bit was just the sugars from the meat crisping up? I didn't.
It's an interesting process. And actually, I did know this because here in America, and I'm going to be interested to know about your burgers, we have the great burger debate.
Oh, okay.
Between the big chunky burgers and the squash flat burgers.
I bet Donald Trump could do one of those.
I bet he probably could. But
so what's the debate?
The squashy flat burgers have more of that browning you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's like a Shake Shack burger or a Five Guys burger. But then you go to like the gastropubs and they have like the huge, big chunky ones. And so it is an ongoing, it's kind of like milk and tea over there, I think.
So what do you prefer?
Which do you prefer?
Well, I like them both.
Way to
I'll eat either. Just bring them to me, please.
Yeah, fair enough. What about you, Sarah? What would you go for with that to get the crispiness or the big thick meat?
I think I'd go for the thicker one because you get more of the juice in the middle. You just have to cook it maybe for slightly longer. And the other important thing is when you're cooking meat, take it out the fridge before at least half an hour before you want to cook it.
Why?
Well, partly because it'll take you less time to cook it, but it also helps the meat to slightly relax and keep it dry. as well. Dry meat will crisp up quicker. If you think about it, it's logical. You know, if it's slimy, if it's wet, you've got to drive off the water before you can start crisping it up. So use a piece of kitchen paper and just dry off the meat.
I'm still going to do it at 20 minutes, 25 minutes at 200. So
don't invite me.
That's what my kids say. No, I'm all right, Dad. I don't need any dinner. I'm good. And let's see if this disgusts you as well. If I'm doing a barbecue style burger, which is what I was doing, I've always got to stick some plastic cheese slices on it. Do you know what I mean by the plastic cheese? The ones in the ready-made slices, and then you unwrap that, stick that on while it's still under the grill, and then melt that on. Couldn't help it. I had to do that.
Yeah.
No. You can judge me.
Speechless.
It's okay to judge me here. It's fine. You can tell me I'm stupid. Everyone expects it.
Well, most of that cheese doesn't taste of anything, and I sort of think that's the point. I mean, I'm going to be really rude about American cheese here because I think it's the food of the devil, personally. I've yet to ever taste any cheese in America that has any real flavour or texture.
We should get a riposte.
I think that the cheese you're referring to is ultra processed food industry cheese and not actual American cheese made by farmers, because we have a quite robust and delicious dairy industry right here in the United States. And in fact, we have cheese shops here that rival anything that I've seen in France, and just dedicated to different American varietals of cheeses.
Are any of them made with raw milk?
Some of them are, yes.
Right.
And we have our version.
I stand to be corrected, but we had some friends who we used to see in America, and she said to me one day, "Oh, I know you guys really like cheese, so I've been to the cheese shop and got some." And it was like,
well,
doesn't taste right.
Let's not start an international incident here, Matt.
Well, I think if I'm going to be fair, I don't know when you were over last, but it's kind of like the beer industry here. There has, over the last 20 years or so, been an explosion of smaller farms and dairy making their own cheese, farmers market, just sort of the whole, I guess you'd call it artisanal, even though I'm coming to hate that word with a passion. The whole artisanal movement that we see with beer and all the interesting beers that are being made here now has shown up in other areas as well, including cheeses, which I happen to love cheese.
I rest my case because I haven't been in the last 6 or 7 years. So you could be right. I'll give it another go.
And for all of you Americans that were offended by that, that was Sara Very. That's Varey and not Spanner. I think American cheeses are fantastic and just as good. And I don't mind that you wash it in chlorine. I may have misread the article that I'm referencing. The chat room might have just given us the most disappointed comment I've ever had. Tom Wheatley, just slice some cheddar, for God's sake. Like, I can really sense the disappointment in that. Like, I've offended your ancestors, Tom. Lucas Myers, I'm so disappointed in that cheese, Spanners. Yeah, it's not going down well, Matt, my cheese slice comment.
No, although if you're going to do that, I think Velveeta is the one to use because it's 100% actual cheese. Like, I mean, it's just like standard. It's standard cheddar. It's the American singles that are the synthetic product. And Lucas in the chat room suggests perhaps I should have used the word artisanal instead.
No, you know how I feel about puns. They make me angry because I can't do them. And I never think of them, and I'm jealous of people that do. Let's return to the cooking. Let's stop the cheese war, all right? This is a time for healing.
That was your fault.
Mine? I would never spark an international incident on purpose again. So we were talking about the basic types of applying heat to things, because it's all about applying heat to stuff. And baking and roasting, we've covered that a little bit, and that kind of has been my get out of jail card forever. Like, if I say to the kids, I'm cooking something fancy, they're like, oh, God, it's going to be hit or miss, Dad. If I say I'm getting stuff out of the freezer and putting it in the oven, they'll be at least, okay. He's not going to mess up breaded cod and chips. we'll probably be okay. But one of my main things is that I go to as my go-to dinners is like the one pan thing, like a spaghetti bolognese, and I'm forever getting it wrong. It's really hit and miss. But I guess this comes under boiling we're boiling our bolognese. No?
No, please don't.
Oh.
Right. Misconception number one. Okay.
Oh no,
so
number
the first
one.
thing you're going to do.
There's a list. Oh no.
So lots of people will say to me, "Oh, I'm just going to make a quick spag bowl."
Yeah.
Right. There's no such thing. The sauce needs a couple of hours.
What?
Right? It needs time.
No, hang on. Sorry. I think you might have cut. It sounded like you said a couple of hours.
Yeah. Minimum.
For a bolognese.
Yeah. And it's called ragu. If you go to Bologna, they have no idea what you're talking about if you say spaghetti bolognese.
Really?
And in fact, yeah.
So I should call it.
They don't serve it with spaghetti either. But anyway.
Okay. So
I don't know. I think we got it from America.
These Americans again. They're always changing everything and saying it was theirs. But the
okay, so
the bologneses I do are not for 2 hours. So what am I missing out on? What have I failed to get?
So you need to start by frying an onion, but you need to fry it gently to start with, okay? In some olive oil. So finely chopped onion. I'll tell you what, I have discovered the joys of frozen vegetables.
Okay.
And frozen chopped onions are amazing. And you can literally take it straight out, a handful out of the freezer and put it in a pan and cook it. And it's perfect because a little bit of water actually stops them burning. So what you need to do is to soften it.
So
okay?
Is it because it's got the ice from the freezer that actually acts as water to stop it burning?
Tiny bit, but it's amazing stuff.
So I will say every
are
time I've fried an onion as the start of my ragu, see how I've already switched and learned. By the time I've got the mince and browned it and everything, my onions are always burnt. Like I've burnt them.
Yeah. You're doing it too hot. That's right. And you need to get rid of some of the water in the onions before they will start to brown. But before they start to brown, just soften them off. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes. Okay. Don't do everything on a high heat.
Oh, really?
Subtle with it. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Start your 200, oven.
Yeah.
And then you put in the meat and you stir the meat around, but don't move it too much because actually you need to drive the moisture off.
Oh.
And you only need to take the colour off it. You don't want it red. You want to seal it and get some of the sweetness out of it. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And then you're going to put in you need some carrot as well, very finely diced carrot. You can do those at the same time. And you can also buy it in a freezer, right? Already done. In fact, I noticed the other day there's something called sofrito, which is what that's called. And you can buy it ready-made.
Well, that's a big complaint about my ragu, is that my carrots are never...
Carrot.
No, I put carrot in it, but then they're like crunchy still.
That's because they're too big.
Oh, so...
They're hard. You need very, very, very... if you watch MasterChef, they've got it so small you could put it through a sieve.
Oh.
Almost. Okay, but trust me, just go and buy it ready chopped. It's like life's too short to chop a carrot these days. And apparently they're better for you because of all the vitamins and things. Anyway, so you do that, right? The carrot, and you can put a bit of bacon in there if you like as well.
Yes, please. I'm in.
And then the meat, and then the meat. And then you want some tomato puree, bit of wine. I think the Italians actually use white, which is slightly,
Oh, really? Because Gina Kane in our chat says, hello, Gina. It is made with wine. You are supposed to slowly drink the rest of the bottle as it's cooking.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think there was a big thing on Radio 4 and it was going, are you drinking more during lockdown? And like collectively, the whole nation went, well, yes, of course we are. You hurry up. Don't you bother me. You put all your effort into the vaccine-y thing. Okay. And then we'll talk about my drinking after. Right now, no. I'll crack on. Thank you very much. So we have tended to do is what we've tended to do is if we open a bottle of red and we don't finish it, and then it kind of gets past the point where it starts to turn, that becomes bolognese wine. It gets put in a corner and you go, that's our bolognese wine. So we've always done red though.
I don't think somebody can correct me if they like. I don't think that's important. But you need to put the wine in before you put anything else in, and you drive off the alcohol.
So before the tomatoes and everything, that's when you put the alcohol. Okay, so I've definitely always put it in afterwards. So,
no,
oh my goodness,
first and drive off the alcohol.
Does that mean that I've not driven off the alcohol when I've done it towards the end?
No, because you're probably doing that because you're boiling it afterwards anyway. But but it gives you more flavour. That's the thing.
Right.
If you do it then, it gives you more flavour.
Okay.
And then you add in tinned tomatoes, some tomato puree, and a bit of beef stock. A really dark beef stock is good. And then you just leave it, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, you should do it in an open pan. Best thing to do it in is actually a frying pan. And you just leave it. And and you keep it on a really, really low heat. Because if you boil it, if you cook it quickly, it goes tough. The meat will be tough.
Oh, okay. So that's why we're trying to do it slower. And do I want a lid on it, like I've been doing? No?
No, leave it without a lid. So you're driving off the moisture.
Yeah.
You want a really thick, tasty stew. It's just that you're making it with mince. I
don't think I have done any of the things you've just suggested, and that might be why I have hard carrots floating around. I think I've had tough meat quite a lot of the time as well.
Yep.
And the flavour has not been good. I don't know, Matt. How does that sit in with you compared to your normal ragu adventures?
Well, as previously stated, my wife cooks all of the foods like that, and that's pretty much how she cooks it when she makes that particular sauce.
Okay.
So I am down with that because it is tasty.
All right. Well, what we've got, Sarah, if you don't mind, we've opened it up to our listeners to come and jump on, and we've got Lucas joining us from. Hang on. Let me see if I remember. You are a New Yorker living in Texas.
Close. A northerner living in Texas.
Okay. Right. Fair enough. What is your question for Sarah?
It's actually to back her up on the pasta debate and add a little bit as well. It takes at least an hour for the sauce.
What?
And when the sauce is started to get thick, add a little bit of butter because it adds a little bit of creaminess to it. Salt your pasta water before you put your noodles in. Save a little bit. And then when the sauce is done, you dump the noodles straight into the sauce. And then you add a little bit of pasta water, crank the heat up, and cook it for a couple minutes, and it really adds a lot of flavor and kind of binds the sauce to the noodles. Completely changes the game.
What do you think to that, Sarah? And just because he's American and we've already insulted their cheese doesn't mean we can't insult Lucas. We can.
No, he's absolutely right. And I didn't know the thing about saving the pasta water until I was watching Jamie Oliver one night, actually. and he said he was shown by an Italian to do that. So I have no argument with that. And the other thing is that, of course, in Italy, ragu and pasta is actually a starter. It's not a main course, and the meat is the side issue.
And this is it. And then in the UK, I don't know if it's the same in America, Lucas, but we will have a big bowl of spaghetti bolognese, and we will just fill ourselves up with that completely, and then go, I don't know where all this weight has come from. Oh, lasagna tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean eating a pound of pasta?
Sorry, Lucas.
You mean eating a pound of pasta and then feeling like a garbage person because then you also drank half a bottle of wine by yourself?
Hey, I feel attacked. We're going to have to hang up on you before you expose any more of my dark secrets. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Let's see. There we go. I know how to do these things, Matt. I managed to successfully put Lucas back in the waiting room. Your comment, please, Mr. Trumpets.
Well, I'm just thinking that now that we've got him spending several hours making this sauce, perhaps you should make him make his own pasta to really go authentic.
Should I do that, Sarah?
Yeah, it's not difficult.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you need to set the bar a little lower as far as your expectations for my cooking skills go.
I mean, I have no problem with dried pasta, but don't buy the very cheap stuff, is all I would say.
My wife and daughter were making tagliatelle, and they have one of those roller things. And I was watching.
Tagliatelle.
I think that's what I said. I said it exactly like that. So
No.
incorrect challenge.
didn't.
Well, we'll have to roll it back. We can't tell now. We'll have to wait till we listen back. So it took them forever though, and it just seems so involved. And then it was really thin and light and lovely, but it's all over. It was like a day's effort to make this unpronounceable pasta.
It gets quicker. It's like everything else. The more you do it, the quicker you get at it. It's quite therapeutic.
Cool. So I'm gonna.
You do the meat, and they
Yeah.
do the pasta.
No, they make so much mess, Sarah. They're only 8 and 10, and they're terrible. We will. This has run well over what I promised. I'm so sorry, but thank you for coming and joining us. And I feel like I can make my bolognese now with new vigor. I don't like the idea of doing it 2 hours in advance. I've got to be honest, but I'm gonna trust you. All about patience, slow.
Mm-hmm.
Not just blitzing everything on number 9 out of 10 on the frying hob thing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sarah, do you do social?
Patience.
Do you do social media and stuff? Do people follow you? And
I try not to. It's always difficult because I'm a newsreader, and it becomes a tricky one.
You're not allowed an opinion.
I can on a personal feed, but I can't if I use the BBC, and I think it's too difficult to keep the two things apart, so I tend not to.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you're probably better off. I saw a quote on the internet somewhere. Sorry, I can't attribute it properly, but somebody said, somewhere in the world, there's a phoneless idiot sat next to a waterfall with no idea that he's supposed to be super, super angry and no idea about who he's meant to be angry with. So, and social media just instructs us what we're meant to be outraged about today. So you're probably better off without it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the bit, Sarah, that I'm really bad at hanging up on people, even on like radio and stuff. I never want to say goodbye. I never want to just hang up and go, okay, bye then. You'll come back soon, right? So I'm very bad at it. So I'm just going to say goodbye and awkwardly hang up on you rudely.
Bye.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you very much. Good. I sort of got away with that. I'm still very bad at that, Matt. I'm still very bad at the transition between conversation and then suddenly they're not there anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging, especially when you're on a show and you're feeling like a host. I think it's because you have the host mentality.
And then it's just like shoving them out the front door and going, but even though like we're way past the agreed time, we said we'd keep Sarah on for anyway. But there's still lots of life to chat about if you've got a little time, Matt. Great news about a vaccine for COVID-19. I'm trying to temper my excitement for it, but it's kind of a game changer, isn't it? It's changing everyone's attitude to... Lucas is upset saying, well, you hung up on me just fine. Sorry, Lucas. It's changing everyone's attitude now and outlook to the next few months. It's you got to temper your expectations, but it's hard not to be just fully excited that a vaccine's coming.
The news that we have seen is very positive regarding vaccines and the fact that we're getting close to the step where people, large numbers of people, will actually be able to get them. And it is exciting. I don't know, you would think that with the knowledge there's a vaccine that will protect you nearby in the next couple of months, people would be more cautious. But I haven't seen it yet, at least over here.
No, I think people are going to be like, oh, it's over. We don't have to worry about everything because it's over. But there's still like a difficult few months in a peak where we're still rising, where we've probably not seen the worst of it yet. So, still the need to take precautions and remain indoors. But at least there's just that little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So, I'm delighted by it. I don't want to... What I'm about to say next might sound really negative, but we've just spent 9 months trying to survive by tacking hard away from physical spaces and moving everything online for a bunch of services and things that is going to be much less valuable in the post vaccine world. And I was having a good hard look at it yesterday and thought, no one's going to want this stuff we've spent 9 months putting together. We're finally just getting back to the point where we're back on our feet. We're nearly at a par at where we were before everything got wiped away. And now we're going to have to start again. We're just going to lose all those things again and have to turn around and try and fire the physical side up too.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, certainly for us, we need to be able to do things in real life. But there's a fair amount of things that I do that are also now being done virtually. I don't know how much of that is going to go away altogether and how much flexibility is going to be needed. And, not to be Debbie Downer, so to speak, but this is probably not the last thing like this we are going to see. So having that infrastructure and having built it up already, it might serve you well in the longer term.
Yeah, I suppose so. Do you know what the most annoying thing from a professional point of view is? That so many people have caught up to how to do what we were doing before the pandemic. So having good professional, well, on Missed Apex, not so much here, but like good professional multi-person remote broadcasts and being able to put out what we put out. So many people are up to speed now. Nobody knew what Zoom was before the pandemic. We had a little secret. It was like our little secret weapon because it was that bit better than Skype. And now everybody's got it. So we need to find new USPs, Matt. New unique selling points to thrust us into the post-COVID world.
Yeah, I know. And we're on the lookout. So if anyone has any good suggestions, drop us a line.
Yeah. Save a podcaster. Give us an idea. Good. But yeah, overall, we'll get Dr. Holding on to talk about it. But I'm seeing lots of negatives on the internet. So I'm seeing, firstly, conspiracy theories. We love a good conspiracy theory, don't we? So apparently one of the Pfizer, that's the company that made it, one of the Pfizer shareholders sold a fair amount of his stock in the company the day after the news. And on the face of it, that doesn't look great. But then you go, well, if you had a company and you did a brilliant thing and that drove the stock price up, that makes sense to sell a chunk of it, doesn't it? And get like a dividend.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the overall facts of this particular case. I guess the timing looks a bit dodgy, but the thing you got to understand is that a large portion of the money they make comes in terms of options, and they sell these options, to fund things in their lives. It's like deferred pay. You just sort of cash it in whenever you like, and cashing it in when the stock price is high. Well,
sort of makes sense.
I don't know. It kind of makes sense. Now, if it turns out that everything about the vaccine is a lie and false,
that's the thing.
Then I think you'd have something there. Otherwise, it's just
no, it looks fine.
Otherwise,
but there's lots of negativity, and this is one of the things with social media. Well, whatever happens, there's an equal negative reaction to it. And then, of course, the anti-vaxxers coming out and hearing lots of people say, I will never take that vaccine.
Good. Good. We'll just, it'll just, I don't know. I shouldn't say good, but my initial reaction is great. That's just evolution in action, my friend.
So I was following one particular online argument, and there was a suggestion that in a post-COVID world with a vaccine, that certain activities would require you to be vaccinated. And an anti-vaxxer was on there saying, no, you're forcing me to get vaccinated. So, well, no, we're recommending you get vaccinated, but you can't force organizations to take risks, actively take risks by having deliberately non-vaccinated people come to their events.
Well, for example, it's long been a thing here that if you send your child to school, they need to have a record of their vaccines. They still try and make that controversial, but that, was true when I was a kid back in the 70s. So it's hardly a new thing. I could absolutely imagine you would need a proof of vaccination, like say next time I get on a plane to come visit you.
Yeah.
To go to another country. I don't think that's the least bit controversial. And if you want to whine about it, then you're like those people on planes who don't want to wear the masks. They will land the plane and take you away, and then you won't be allowed back on the plane anymore because they're private enterprises. They have the right to, they have the right to set their own rules as to how their service is used. And if you fail to respect them, well, then, why are you surprised? Why are you surprised by that? Perhaps you should just try consuming some science, do a little bit of critical thinking there, and join, never mind the 21st century, the second half of the 20th century would do just fine at this point.
Oh, wait a minute. we shouldn't ever be biased, Matt. Maybe we should dedicate an equal amount of time to why vaccines might be government conspiracies to track you and control your brain.
My aunt had polio.
Yeah.
So no. No,
so no, let's not do that.
You are a raving delusional lunatic if you believe stuff like that. And the sooner you disabuse yourself of that, the better.
Yeah. Well, that was quite a passionate rant. I can't help but think of the movie with Will Smith on Manhattan, I Am Legend, where they think they've got a cancer cure, but it turns everybody into like vampire zombies or whatever it was. I think they were like vampires, weren't they? In I Am Legend.
Was it a cancer cure? I know he was working on a vaccine for the zombieism.
No, yeah, that's what he was working on. But the original thing was a cure for cancer. There was an interview with the doctor lady at the beginning, and they went, "You've cured cancer," and she's like, "Yes, I have. It's really great." And then that was turning most of the population into the vampire things. So that's how I Am Legend started.
I've managed to miss that twice now when I've caught the movie.
So there we go. So hopefully this vaccine doesn't turn the human race mostly into a race of night-dwelling vampire zombies. But it probably won't.
Well, I mean, they've already tested it on people and it hasn't happened. So they would probably have to list that in the side effects column. You know, itching, swelling, occasional zombie.
Ask your doctor if vampire zombieism is good for you. Always read the label. May kill children. Okay, good. Well, there we go, Matt. Matt, I have had somewhat of a relaxing week. I think from switching off the social media a bit, wouldn't want to be. I still get that itch. I still want to be on the social media. I still want to do all that stuff. I've cheated a few times, so no drama with that. I do feel relaxed, but I was going through my list of tasks, and you said that there would be some that I've missed. I have certainly failed. Do you know what I've really failed? Is lighting.
Where?
I've just in general, the lighting in our house isn't good. Unless you're buying our house, in which case it's fine. But the lighting is not great. Like the guy before had clearly felt himself a handyman and had gone ahead and just done a lot of the jobs himself. So they're not professional. Yeah. So when I've like gone to change the light fitting, it's just, I look at it and I go, that's not what I was expecting to see. Which wire goes to where now? And I'm like taking photos of it and like sending it to Thunderbeast, and he's going, "Whoa, why look at that light fitting? Like that's not like what I'd expect. What wires are those like?" You know. And so yeah, it's been a bit of an adventure.
I'm laughing because you're bringing up one of my favorite all-time stories about my own, because as an apartment dweller, there's a limited amount of stuff that one does on one's own. But two apartments ago, it was just warm in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And we're in the home improvement store one day, and there's the ceiling fan. And my wife's like, "Oh, I would love a ceiling fan." And it was on sale. And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot to install." And then you flip the box over, and they're like, "Oh, you connect the red wire to the red wire and the green wire to the green wire, and then connect the black wire to the ground. And then you just screw it in and turn it on." And I was like, "Okay, well, this seems theoretically possible." Mm-hmm. And so I go home, pull the lighting fixture down. So now I'm committed. But what I hadn't counted on was the fact that my apartment was in a 110-year-old brownstone and had wiring that was basically 110 years old. Every wire was the same color.
Nice.
And there were more wires present than should have been. At one point, I accidentally unwired all the power to the kitchen.
Yeah, well, that's dangerous.
It was very exciting, and I had the multimeter, and I was using it properly, and I would still get some reading, but thankfully my dad had done a reasonable amount of electrical work in his earlier years, so I was able to ring him up a couple of times. So what should have been like maybe an hour's job turned into literally a whole day. But eventually, I'm sort of convinced I'm right about. We screw everything in, flip the power on, wife pulls the light cord, the lights come on. Wife pulls the fan cord, fan comes on, runs 3 different speeds, and she goes, "Wow, it actually works." So I was set up for failure from the beginning.
Oh, ye of little faith. So I had the opposite problem. My wife just expects you to be able to just change a light fitting. Now, I'm qualified as an electronics engineer. I've worked on radars and transmitters. I feel like I've got more of a grasp of what I don't know than her and her family. Like, they don't know what they don't know, so they're more than happy to just go, it's just wiring. It's just a light. It's just a light, innit? We'll just change it. And, when you're in your story, you got as far as you took the fixing out and you saw all the different wires and there was more than you expected. That is kind of about as far as I got, because I just looked at it and went, that is a rat's nest. I don't think that normal people should do light fittings, because you should understand household electronics specifically before you start doing that.
No, you were right. And you're reminding me of another fun apartment story. So the way apartments in New York work is when you first get here, you have no money. So you don't live in an apartment all on your own. You share an apartment with other people.
Yeah.
And if you're a musician, you might do this for some number of years before you achieve the dream of, I have my own room. I have never mind my own room. I have like my own place. And this was, I don't know, many, many years ago in the early 90s. And I was living in an apartment with several other people. And the person who had the apartment was, is it acceptable to say batty? Is that an objectionable word? She was a bit eccentric.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Well, we'll go with that. And one day, all the power to our apartment went out. And it stayed that way for about a week. We didn't know why until we discovered that in an attempt to insulate one of the outlets, she had stuffed it full of paper and it had actually caught fire and caused a short that took the entire apartment offline. So yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, probably better to hire a professional.
Just leave it. So we've got to change this light thing, right? So I know which circuit to isolate. I isolate the thing. Now I'm a bit edgy when it comes to electrics. I've had a couple of big belts. I've had 3-phase power belt. I've had a domestic belt as well when I was fixing something out in Cyprus, and I just should not have been fixing that. It hurts to get a belt from electricity. So I was nervous about doing it anyway. I looked at it. I opened the thing up and I said, Nick, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to get an electrician to pop round. It's one of those no job too small things, and they'll just come and do the fitting and it's done. And she was really, no, don't be so stupid. Just call my brother, call Tony. So I'd sent them the photos, and her brother convinced me that I can do this, that I can just rewire it and it's fine. So I took away the old fitting, went to take the fitting off, but the terminal blocks for the wires were stopping it. So I had to then take these terminal blocks off, and these things are connected so that it comes from one room, goes to that fitting, goes down to a light switch, comes back up, then goes to the next room. So it's medium complicated. I'm just get as far as taking the terminator blocks off to get it through the fitting, and the screw must have been there for some amount of time because I'm sure the circuit wasn't live. Cracked it to turn the thing, and a blue spark flashed out of it, and it was probably just stiction from this screw had not been undone for many, many years, but that was enough for me to just go, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm putting it down. And I walked away, and I phoned an electrician, and they were like, yeah, we'll come and fit it for 40 quid. I'm like, okay, the peace of mind that 40 quid is going to buy me, I think was good value.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's why for a lot of jobs you take your car to the shop, even if you technically could figure it out on your own. They do it all the time, every day, and if something goes wrong, they have the tools and skills and parts to actually fix it. I mean, this is the same when I was in the bike shop. There's a lot of jobs you could do at home, but if you get them wrong, then you've ruined your bike and you've cost yourself a lot of money. You bring them to me, I do 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 of these a day. I'm gonna get it right, and if it's wrong, we fix it for you. So problem solved.
This is probably, I think I might have told this before, but I managed to break one of the fixings in my wife's car when I was just trying to replace a bulb. It was like really overly complicated to change the main front bulb. So the next time I did it, I went to the shop, I got the bulb, and they said, oh, we'll fit it for you for 6 quid. And I went, all right then, okay, yeah, I'll take that fitting. So I stood outside, and this really grumpy Halfords, it was Halfords, engineer comes out, and he goes, well, what would your dad say? What would your dad say if he knew you were paying someone to change your light bulb for you? I went, I don't know. Like, what's this? And he was like really grumpy. And as he was getting his hands in there, I'd said something about like, well, it's 6 quid. It's going to take you 5 minutes. It would take me an hour. I'd have to figure it out. And I've damaged a car doing this before. And he was, oh yeah, what, just get Steve's hands all cut up and broken inside your car. Save your own. I was like, wow, dude. I don't know why you're so upset about this. Maybe because he came out and he saw like a working age bloke and was being like, well, you should be able to do your own stuff.
It sounds more like he resents having to do that particular job for probably no extra money.
It's a 5-minute job. When you know what you're doing, it's a 5-minute job. When you have to research it and look it up, there's not only is it an hour job, but there's a chance you break the thing, you break the bulb, and you just cause more damage.
My windshield wiper. Did I tell you about my windshield wiper trauma?
No, but let's end on that.
All right, fair enough. Speaking of doing things yourself, one of the things that anyone who owns a car might expect to be able to do is replace their windshield wiper. And as happens, we recently bought ourselves a new used car, and we were driving to the airport one day, and the wiper blades just start completely off of the wiper itself. And these are designed, they have a specific shape. It's like one of those low profile ones. So you can't just go get the standard wiper blade and replace it. And also there's silicone, so they give you that extra rain protection. When it's not raining that hard, it beads up and goes off. So I wanted the silicone. And I'm like, okay, but I have to get the wiper blade off to look at it to see if I can just get like the silicone bit or if I need like a whole new blade.
Yeah.
And this was also right in the middle of the pandemic, so I couldn't just run down to the store. Couldn't run down to the auto parts store and deal with it that way. It had to all be done online. So I look at a video. This is how you take it off. You take the tab and you push it this way, and you do X, Y, and Z. I get the thing up, because now you got to do things like the buttons and the things to make the wiper blade come up off the windshield. The old one, Toyota, you just pick it up and do it. And there's the tab, and I push the tab. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's pull. And I pull the tab with
some strength.
Maybe a third, not even a third of a kilogram of force. And it just goes snap. Comes right off. Breaks. I'm like, great. So I look at the other one, and sure enough, I was correct. You pull it towards you, and I was able to work out how it all worked. So then I had to get a screwdriver, because now the tab is broken.
Okay.
Get the tab off, get it off. Turns out you have to replace the whole wiper blade. I wasn't sure, so I'd gone ahead and replaced just the silicone bit. So then I get the knife out. I take the flexi bit off, and I use Gorilla Glue.
Oh gosh, okay.
To glue the new bits back on, and and then I use zip ties to get the wiper blade back on the thing correctly. And having done all that, I can safely report that for months now, it has all worked as planned.
Or you could have just paid someone to do it in the shop, and that would have worked out better. Well, there you go. That's the moral of the story this week, is just pay the guy. Stop making it worse. What do you call it? False economy.
Yep.
I would have burned my house down, and that would have cost more than the electrician coming around. Follow Matt at MattPT55 on Twitter. Me at SpannersReady. Keep yourself safe. Remain indoors. Thanks, guys. There we go.